Hello, I'm Esther Gitu. It's Friday, May 5th. This is Africa 54. Airstrikes and gunfire rock the Sudanese capital Friday as fighting shows no signs of ending soon. Excitement builds as Britain prepares for the coronation of King Charles III on Saturday at Westminster Abbey. The historic ceremonial event is expected to attract millions of worldwide viewers. And the White House denies any U.S. involvement in Wednesday's drone attack on the Kremlin. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. The battle for Sudan on Friday continues to be hot and heavy as the sounds of airstrikes and gunfire echoed across Khartoum. The fighting shows no signs of ending soon, despite the threat of renewed U.S. sanctions and warnings of a lengthy conflict. Hundreds of people have died in nearly 3 weeks of fighting between Sudanese government troops and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. The United Nations warned Friday that large numbers of children are dying in the conflict, pointing to reports indicating that 7 children are being killed or injured every hour. The UN Children's Agency says it has received reports from a trusted partner, not yet independently verified by the UN, that 190 children were killed and 1,700 injured in just the first 11 days of the conflict. Following a meeting in Nairobi with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Kenyan President William Ruto spoke about the conflict in Sudan.
We also had an opportunity to discuss regional peace and security and shared our concerns regarding the unfortunate events in Sudan and their spillover effects to the region. We agreed on the immediate need for unconditional cessation of hostilities and humanitarian aid access and protection of civilians. We underscored the need for the international community to support Kenya, IGAD, and the African Union in the ongoing efforts to resolve that conflict. I urged Chancellor Scholz to use his voice and Germany's influence in various platforms, including the EU, the G7, G20, and the UN, to focus global attention on the forgotten conflicts in Africa in general and especially in the Horn of Africa.
The conflict has derailed an internationally backed plan to usher in democracy and civilian rule in Sudan after a 2019 popular uprising that ousted Islamist leader Omar al-Bashir. U.S. First Lady Jill Biden is in London Friday as she prepares to represent the United States at the coronation of King Charles on Saturday. The historic event takes place at Westminster Abbey. Dozens of world leaders, heads of state and dignitaries have been invited to the ceremony, while millions are expected to watch on television. Henry Ridgewell has more from the British capital.
In the skies and on the ground, rehearsals are underway for King Charles III's coronation. It will be an event full of extraordinary pomp and pageantry. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to line the route from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey. Every detail of the ceremony has historical and religious meaning. Charles will be anointed with holy oil brought from Jerusalem. The processional cross includes fragments said to be from the true cross on which Jesus was crucified, given by Pope Francis.
The coronation goes back over 1,000 years, and since 973 AD, when King Edgar was crowned in Bath. The oldest the first coronation at Westminster Abbey that we know occurred was William the Conqueror in 1066, and the actual ritual has changed little over the centuries.
Charles officially became king after the passing of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, on September 8th. The coronation is also a chance for the British public to celebrate their new monarch. Community street parties are planned across Britain. The event will echo Elizabeth's coronation 70 years ago, but there will be important differences.
You also had a 25-year-old queen. I mean, here, and this is a problem with King Charles and Queen Camilla, and that is their age.
That's not the only challenge for the 74-year-old king. A recent poll showed 58% of the public supports the monarchy, but among 18 to 24-year-olds, support is just 32%.
I think that he realizes that the challenges ahead, so far as the monarchy is concerned, it's very important that there should be some form of acceptance of the monarchy's links to the slave trade in past years. His environmental credentials are impeccable. I mean, that appeals very considerably to a younger base.
The fallout of Prince Harry and Meghan's split from the royal family amid accusations of racism denied by the palace continues to overshadow the monarchy. Charles's brother, Prince Andrew, has been effectively banished after settling a sex assault case. Some see dangers ahead for the monarchy.
The big threat to the future of the House of Windsor is not mobs storming the gate. It's not revolution. It's becoming irrelevant. They understand that. You've got to, the Queen always used to say, we have to be seen to be believed. They have to play a part in national life.
The royal family will hope that the coronation provides an opportunity for public celebration and for renewal of the monarchy itself. But it will also mark a new chapter with new challenges that King Charles at its head will have to navigate to keep the royal family relevant in the 21st century. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
King Charles will be crowned at Westminster Abbey on Saturday. The 360-year-old St. Edward's crown, weighing 2.2 kilograms, will be placed onto Charles' head by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The coronation, whose origins date back 1,000 years, is the biggest ceremonial event since that staged for Charles's mother, Queen Elizabeth, in 1953. For more on the pomp and circumstance surrounding the coronation of King Charles, let's go live to London, where Associated Press correspondent Philip Crowther is standing by. Good evening, Philip. Give us highlights on what to expect tomorrow during King Charles' coronation.
Well, look, the over 2,000 invited guests at Westminster Abbey tomorrow and the millions of people watching the coronation at home will be seeing things that have not been seen for 70 years. The reign of Queen Elizabeth II was a long one. But what we will also be seeing are traditions that go back to the Middle Ages, back to, as you just heard, the year 1066. And some of the objects that will be used in this coronation of Charles III also hark back to medieval times, and they are symbols of medieval power, the orb, the scepter. These are all extraordinary things that we will see during this coronation here on Saturday at Westminster Abbey. This ceremony, though, will be a little bit different to the one of Queen Elizabeth II 70 years ago. It's going to be slightly shorter, around 2 hours instead of 3. There will also be more faiths who will be represented at Westminster Abbey, thereby reflecting the diversity, more diversity that Britain now has compared to 70 years ago. There are other highlights for the royal super fans who have been camping out here outside Buckingham Palace for a few days now already, and those highlights are happening outside of Westminster Abbey. There will be 2 processions for King Charles I, one heading to the Abbey and one thereafter, after he is officially coronated. And it will be, after he's officially crowned, of course, I should say, this is going to be the biggest military parade that this country has seen in 70 years. And then the last public appearance of the British royal family this Saturday we expect to happen on the balcony of Buckingham Palace that you can see right behind me. But the question still is, who exactly is going to make an appearance on that balcony? How many members of the royal family will be seen there? How many will receive the cheers of the adoring crowd that has already assembled here in London?
So, Philip, give us a little background. Put us in the picture. Tell us what the atmosphere is like in Buckingham Palace.
Well, look, some of the scenes that you can see here around Buckingham Palace, but also along the Mall, that's the ceremonial route that leads from Buckingham Palace to Trafalgar Square, are not all too dissimilar to other big royal events that London has seen over the centuries, be it royal weddings or funerals, jubilees for the Queen in recent times, or of course also very recently the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. There are tents that have been set up here for days already. Those royal fans want to be the first in line to see King Charles I be taken in a horse-drawn carriage to and from Westminster Abbey. I should tell you that my aunt actually is one of them. She's a royalist. She very much likes the royal family. She was here for the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. She was here for the wedding of Charles and Diana, and she is here again. These are the kinds of people who will be lining the streets here tomorrow to get not just one but several glimpses of Charles III, the King, but also of the Queen Consort Camilla. Over the last few hours, by the way, we have heard quite a few cheers here around Buckingham Palace because there have been quite a few motorcades and limousines moving to and from Buckingham Palace. That's because there's a reception happening right now here in the palace for the wedding guests who will be at Westminster Abbey tomorrow.
Such a beautiful recapture of what's happening there in London. Philip, thank you very much. Philip Crowther, Associated Press correspondent, live for us from London. And now we move on to get an African perspective on King Charles' coronation tomorrow. I'm joined live via Skype from London by Abdi Hafid Ismail, VOA Somali Europe correspondent. Abdi Hafid, welcome to Africa 54. Abdi Hafid, start us with, tell us what the Africans in London think about the coronation tomorrow. What are they saying about this big and historic moment?
Thank you very much for having me on. The Africans in the UK, especially in London, don't have a unified view. Some people have been visible and welcomed the coronation. There are Commonwealth countries in Africa that are not here. They were invited. Some of them didn't turn up. But the actual African people, the African diaspora in the United Kingdom, especially in London, are not unified. But at the same time, there are some other African people who are interested in this because this event hasn't taken place in London for 70 years. So the majority of the African people that live in London are young, and they have not experienced this kind of event. So you have a mixed feeling. You also have some people don't even know what's happening in London, and just some of them are saying that they're watching on telly, but there is the interest and also a mixed feeling.
You mentioned the Commonwealth countries, Abdi Hafid. What's the general view of the future of the monarchy?
The general view of the monarchy, Republican sentiment is definitely increasing. There is a question mark, especially in particular the young people are asking, what is the need to have a monarchy? A recent poll that has taken place in Australia, in Canada, almost 70% of the young people there said, what's the need to have King Charles as the head of the state? Australia also, people are asking the sentiment is increasing of the Republican. Also in the UK also a large number of young people said they don't care about the monarchy as a whole, and some of them prefer to have a Republican. Also, some young people are saying instead of having King Charles as the king, they would prefer William, his son, the Prince of Wales, to become the next king of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth.
Well, there's an African artist expected to perform at the ceremony tomorrow. Tell us a little bit about her.
Yes, for the first time, it seems that the royal family are trying to include some performance from Africa. They want to create that connection. Also, one thing that we need to also be aware of, this ceremony in a way, it's a religion ceremony. So they also invited other religion leaders, and they want this to be international, where they include singers from Africa, an element of theater in it, especially the young, the singer from South Africa. But also we have other religion groups from the UK. You have a large Muslim community, you have a large Jewish community in the United Kingdom, especially in London. So those people have also been invited. I think about 2,800 guests have been officially invited. So the monarchy wants this to be inclusive event and inclusive ceremony for the coronation of the King Charles III.
All right, thank you so much, Hafid. Abdi Hafid Ismail is a VOA Somali Europe correspondent.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Sure. South African soprano Pretty Yende has risen to the top of the opera world and has been handpicked to perform solo at the coronation of King Charles III on Saturday. Yende is the first African national to sing solo at a British coronation.
I remember when I actually got invited thinking, what do I sing for the king? It was like a very peculiar moment, a very, very, very extraordinary moment. So my heart is always willing to share the joy that it finds in the melodies that I sing.
Millions are expected to watch the televised event, likely the biggest audience in Pretty Yende's career so far, and according to her, a dream come true. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, the White House denies any U.S. involvement in Wednesday's drone attack on the Kremlin. We'll be right back.
In Sudan, conflict and instability has taken a heavy toll on its people, particularly its women. Weeks of intense fighting has left many homeless, hungry and traumatized. Yet when we look at Sudan's recent history, we see that women have played instrumental roles in peaceful resolutions as well. On this week's episode of Our Voices, we will be examining the long-term effect that such a conflict will have on this society, its women and the future generations. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
From around the world, let's go.
In other news, the U.S. nonprofit organization FHI 360 says 2 of 3 humanitarian aid workers abducted in northeast Nigeria have been found safe 1 week after being taken from Gala, Borno State, near the border with Cameroon. An FHI 360 spokesperson did not say if the Nigerian aid workers were rescued or whether they had escaped. Mali's ruling junta announced Friday that a referendum on a new constitution will be held on June 18th. The new constitution is the first major step in plans the military has invoked to justify continuing to govern until 2024. Elections are due to be held in February 2024 to restore a civilian government in Bamako. And Kenyan cult leader Paul Ndenge Mackenzie, accused of inciting and possibly forcing his followers to starve themselves to death, appeared in a Mombasa courtroom Friday in connection with the deaths of more than 100 people found buried in mass graves. A total of 109 people have so far been confirmed dead, most of them children. The White House says the United States was not involved in Wednesday's drone attack on the Kremlin after Russia claimed without evidence that the U.S. ordered the strike and Ukraine carried it out. VOA senior diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sain has the details.
The White House says it is investigating an alleged drone attack late Wednesday on the Kremlin, which Russia claims was a failed attempt by Ukraine to assassinate Russian President Vladimir Putin. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby.
One thing I can tell you for certain is that the United States was not involved in this incident in any way, contrary to Mr. Peskov's lies. And that's what they are, just lies.
Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov blamed Kyiv and Washington earlier Thursday without providing any evidence of their involvement in the attack.
These attempts to disown this, both by Kyiv and by Washington, are, of course, absolutely ridiculous. We know very well that decisions about such actions, about such terrorist attacks, are made not in Kyiv, but in Washington, and Kyiv does what it is told to do.
At the International Criminal Court in The Hague on Thursday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for a war crimes investigation of Putin. On Wednesday, he said Ukraine was too busy defending itself from Russian attacks to launch such a strike on the Kremlin.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapons for this.
In Brussels, European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell had this warning for Moscow.
We call Russia not to use this alleged attack as an excuse to continue the escalation of the war. This is what worries us.
A Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said all parties should refrain from any action that could further escalate the situation. And when asked about Beijing offering to mediate an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Wednesday the U.S. would welcome any country's efforts towards a just and durable peace. But he added,
But it has to begin with a couple of things. First, a clear understanding that in this instance, there's a victim and there's an aggressor. There's no moral equivalence between the two positions. And I have to say, until recently, it was very unclear whether China accepted that basic principle. I'm still not sure that they do, but at least President Xi has now had a conversation with President Zelensky.
China has thus far not called on Russia to withdraw its troops from Ukraine. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
It's time for Entertainment Report, and joining us now is David Bande, host of VOA's Africa Beat radio show. Hello, David.
Thank you very much, Esther. And today we have Bo Elvis Stefan, who hails from the Momo Division, Northwest region of Cameroon. He's a father to a 4-year-old daughter, and he started his musical career back in Cameroon in 2010 with his first single, Make Them Know. Arriving here in the United States of America, Bo has continued his music career, and today he's our guest. Welcome to Africa 54, Bo.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for having me.
It's so good to have you. You know, you started your music career way back in 2010 in Cameroon, and you are now here in the United States. So what is it like being an artist in Cameroon and here in the United States?
Yeah, I must say, back home, I was more of a movie actor, and I did a lot of backup singing for other artists back home. I just moved in here and I decided to take the mantle by myself.
And now you're moving with it?
Of course.
Okay. And we're going to talk about your song, Precious Stones.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, Precious Stone is just an appraiser to women. It's an appraiser to women. I mean, ladies are, let me not use the word marginalized. I mean, they are not given the right qualities. So I chose to say, even if you call them a gold, silver, or diamond, or the precious metals, I mean, it can't really quantify the value of women in our society.
Oh,
so
well,
I decided
that someday you will sing for the men too.
Of course.
Okay, well, we're going to take this song now, Precious Stones, and let's watch the video, and then we'll come back to you, okay?
Thank you, sir.
You can call me boy, Cameroonian boy, yeah. I'll be staying on my lane, going till you walk by my way. Cause I know be one to stay again.
That's right, Precious Stones, beautiful song, and that one is specially dedicated to all the ladies. So if I may ask, your name, Bo RK, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's Bo Rocky.
Bo Rocky.
Yeah.
And how many songs do you have right now to your credit?
I mean, I have a couple of songs. I have about more than 28 songs with just about 4 or 5 released.
Okay,
so,
and you have an album?
Yeah, I have an EP coming up on June 2nd. That's when I'm having my show.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, man.
Thank you so much.
It's so good to have you, and we look forward to the release of that.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for having me.
Okay. That's right. And so what we're doing now, we just continue with you and let people enjoy your music. And I want to say congratulations to you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, Esther, thank you so very much for allowing us to be here with you today.
And thank you, David.
All right.
All right. Thank you, David. And so that's where we're going to end our entertainment report. And thank you, viewers, for joining us here on Africa 54. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at viewafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.
You can call me boy, Cameroonian boy, yeah. I'll be staying on my lane, going till you walk by my way. Cause I know be one to stay again, but you make me feel another way. Cause I've been lied to so many times, on countless occasions I had to cry. I had slowly lose my mind, you didn't make me spend my time. Oh,